Ji Xian stood on the battle stage where Wen Busheng was situated. Suspended in mid-air, Ji Xian radiated a torrent of spiritual energy that surged from his body like a tidal wave. Behind him, a vast and magnificent wave of spiritual energy seemed to faintly form into a giant holy sundae. The holy sun floated above, emanating an astonishing pressure of spiritual energy that made many of the onlooking students feel a prickling sensation on their scalps. This level of attack would likely intimidate even those masters who had passed the triple divine soul tribulation. Indeed, it was no wonder Ji Xian had become the most renowned among the 8 captains, demonstrating exceptional prowess. As many marveled, Ji Xian's focused gaze turned forward, where Wen Busheng stood calmly, his palm now transformed into a dark gold hue, resembling a gilded artifact, radiating an inexplicable sense of pressure. Supreme Hand Bone. Ji Xian fixated on Wen Busheng and slowly remarked, "You really have great fortune." At this moment, Ji Xian finally understood why Wen Busheng could lead a not-so-powerful team all the way to the top 8. This seemingly ordinary guy actually possessed such a powerful trump card. Supreme Hand Bone? Some of the students around the battle stage felt a jolt at Ji Xian's words, their eyes widening in shock as they stared at Wen Busheng's gilded right hand. This guy actually possessed a supreme hand bone. Wen Busheng also looked at Ji Xian, smiling as he said, "It's just a stroke of luck. I happened to find this hand bone preserved by the blood of a predecessor in an ancient relic on the relic continent. It just so happens that I am quite compatible with this supreme hand bone, and since I know a bit of transplantation art, I managed to succeed. Truly good luck," some couldn't help but exclaim. Although a supreme powerhouse's body could remain undying for a millennium after their fall, even if someone was fortunate enough to acquire such a supreme bone, they wouldn't be able to implant it into their body, as it originally belonged to someone else. Attempting to integrate it would lead to backlash, unless they were incredibly lucky to achieve a high compatibility with that supreme bone. Yet this extraordinarily unlikely situation had happened to Wen Busheng, making his luck immensely enviable. However, judging by the pressure from your supreme hand bone, its original owner likely never surpassed 5th grade supreme when alive. So, if you intend to win today relying solely on that hand bone's power, it might not be so easy, Ji Xian remarked coolly. "If I don't try my luck, how can I know the result?" Wen Busheng replied with a faint smile. Even in the face of the formidable Ji Xian, he showed no fear. "Then let me experience how much power a supreme powerhouse can leave behind after their demise." Ji Xian cast a deep glance at Wen Busheng, his gaze growing increasingly indifferent. His body began to rise higher into the air, and the vast spiritual energy behind him transformed into an ever clearer and larger holy sundae. Everyone could feel the spiritual energy in the world surge violently at that moment, the light from the holy sun causing the surrounding spiritual energy to boil. Everyone knew Ji Xian was determined to unleash his killing move to end this battle. With a deep breath, Wen Busheng clenched his gilded hand tightly, causing the sleeves of his arm to disintegrate into powder. His arm muscles bulged like coiling dragons, and streams of blood surged throughout his body, finally pouring steadily into his palm. As the blood flowed into his dark gold hand, its color deepened significantly, but the emanating pressure became increasingly formidable. Countless onlookers held their breath, aware that the two were now preparing to unleash a decisive offensive. Boom! The violent spiritual energy rippled through the skies, the dreadful calm before the storm solidifying the atmosphere. In the sky, the holy sun behind Ji Xian expanded to several hundred feet, making his figure appear especially small in front of its dazzling light, as if a blazing sun had descended from above, instilling a sense of overwhelming awe. When the holy sun reached its peak intensity, a sharp gleam appeared in Ji Xian's cold eyes. He gazed down at Wen Busheng from his lofty position, suddenly forming hand seals as his icy voice resonated through the heavens and earth. Buzz! A massive holy sun suddenly emitted a buzzing tremor at this moment. As Ji Xian completed the hand seals, everyone was struck with awe as they witnessed the holy sun shoot straight into the sky. Whoosh! The holy sun soared up into the 9 heavens, and after a few breaths, it suddenly dove downward like a blazing sun falling from the sky, bringing with it world-shattering power. It descended toward the battle stage, directly under the watchful gazes of countless shocked onlookers. Under such a terrifying attack, a large dent appeared on the otherwise indestructible battle stage, and cracks quickly began to spread. The overwhelming force descended from the heavens, causing Wen Busheng's face to grow even more solemn. He raised his head, and the massive holy sun rapidly enlarged within his eyes. His right hand slowly lifted, the gilded palm glowing as if dark gold liquid was flowing within it. Wen Busheng's face grew even paler, and then he raised his palm upwards and lightly slapped the air. Supreme Hand. The soft voice echoed within Wen Busheng's mind. Buzz. Where Wen Busheng's palm landed, the space around it suddenly began to shake violently, with visible ripples expanding out in circles, as though they were the ripples of a lake. Golden light exploded outward, and everyone could clearly see a gilded handprint shoot from Wen Busheng's palm. The handprint expanded rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, it grew to 100 zhang size. The gilded giant palm surged forward, as though a giant was swinging its massive hand. It collided fearlessly with the descending holy sun in a powerful clash. Boom! In the instant of impact, the world seemed to fall into silence, but this silence was only for a moment. Soon after, dazzling and blinding light erupted in the sky. The scene resembled two meteors crashing together. The terrifying spiritual energy shockwave blasted outward, and countless people looked up in horror, watching the clash between the holy sun and the gilded giant palm. The two forces struggled against each other, each trying to annihilate the other. But both forces were shockingly powerful, and for a time, the two mighty attacks were locked in a deadlock. On the battle stage, Wen Busheng watched the scene, his gilded hand remained pressed against the air, and he slowly lowered it once again. His face had grown even paler. Buzz. The gilded giant palm suddenly grew brighter, and then everyone saw it rapidly close, as the massive palm crushed the holy sun with overwhelming force. Hiss. Countless people gasped in shock. No one had expected Wen Busheng to be this powerful, able to crush Ji Xian's formidable attack with a simple gesture. The Supreme Hand Bone truly lived up to its reputation. Whoosh! After crushing the holy sun, the gilded giant palm shot up again, taking advantage of the violent spiritual energy explosion to strike at Ji Xian in the sky. The space around that area became distorted due to the spiritual energy impact, preventing anyone from clearly seeing Ji Xian's expression. However, it appeared that Ji Xian showed no signs of avoiding Wen Busheng's follow-up attack. Whoosh! The gilded giant palm almost instantly appeared before Ji Xian and slapped down with immense force. Ji Xian's expression remained unchanged, and in his eyes, a cold gleam flickered. Screech! Suddenly, a loud, ancient eagle cry rang out through the sky. Countless people looked up, and they seemed to see a phantom-like eagle wing tear through the air, narrowly grazing the gilded giant palm. The illusionary eagle wing appeared only for a moment, disappearing as it passed the gilded palm, causing many to rub their eyes, unsure whether it had been a mere illusion. Just as the gilded giant palm was less than half a zhang from Ji Xian, it froze, unable to move any closer. Ji Xian's expression remained indifferent as he extended his palm and gently pressed it against the gilded giant palm. Crack! With that light touch from Ji Xian, countless people watched in shock as the seemingly indestructible gilded giant palm shattered into pieces, scattering across the sky as golden light particles. Below, Wen Busheng spat a mouthful of blood. He slowly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and lifted his head. At that moment, Ji Xian was slowly descending, his gaze coldly fixated on him. I've lost. Wen Busheng gave a bitter smile, then let out a soft sigh. As soon as Wen Busheng spoke those words, a thunderous gasp filled the air. No one had expected that Wen Busheng, who had been gaining the upper hand, would suddenly be defeated. This Ji Xian is truly too strong. Hearing the overwhelming exclamations, Wen Busheng turned his head to glance at a distant battle stage, where an immense fluctuation of spiritual energy was also radiating. Ji Xian, truly living up to his reputation. Whether or not he can be defeated, Mu Chun, it all depends on you now. At the same time that Wen Busheng was defeated, The battle on the stage where Mu Qian and Lu Qingyun were fighting also entered its most intense phase. A massive black tower floated in the sky, with golden flames roaring inside. The flames seemed capable of incinerating everything in the world. The golden flames surged, repeatedly sweeping towards the cyan spirit shadow within the flames. SSSHHH. The piercing sound echoed out, as if the spiritual energy itself was being burned. The pagoda flames, formed by 4 golden dragons, were so powerful that they were unimaginable. Under the assault of the flames, the cyan spirit shadow quickly twisted. The previously solid cyan light began to warp, and the spirit shadow's blurred face showed signs of pain. On the battle stage, Lu Qingyun's expression also changed drastically. Shatter! Before he could make a move, Mu Qian's cold voice rang out across the heavens and earth. Boom! As Mu Qian's icy words fell, the golden flames within the tower finally erupted with unparalleled ferocity. In an instant, the cyan spirit shadow could no longer resist. Cracks appeared on its massive body, quickly expanding until, with a deep, muffled sound, it exploded completely. A shower of cyan light points shot out, but they were quickly consumed by the golden flames, vanishing into nothingness. The golden flames spread, and soon the space was empty. The cyan spirit shadow no longer existed. That cyan spirit shadow had been completely refined. A mouthful of blood was instantly spat out from Lu Qingyun's mouth. His face turned pale rapidly, and the fluctuations of his spiritual energy weakened to the extreme. The spirit shadow contained his vital blood, so it was closely connected to him. Now that the spirit shadow was refined, he suffered a heavy blow. Whoosh! As Lu Qingyun spat blood, the surrounding crowd on the battle stage erupted in astonishment. Many stared with wide eyes, their faces showing shock. Lu Qingyun had been defeated. Lu Qingyun used such a powerful technique, but still lost to Mu Qian. True to his reputation as the elimination champion, countless voices of awe rang out. Mu Qian's strength was only at the first level of Divine Soul Tribulation, while Lu Qingyun had already reached the 3rd level. Yet even so, Mu Qian was able to win. His combat power was truly awe-inspiring. Big brother Mu Qian won. Yushi's delicate face was filled with excitement, her eyes sparkling with emotion. Yi Qingling, Su Linger, Sun Air, and the others couldn't help but show their joy. The students of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy around them also erupted in a tsunami of cheers. Their faces were flushed with excitement. It had been many years since Northern Heaven had achieved such a remarkable result in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. In the past, when the other 5 great academies looked at them, there was always a hint of mockery in their eyes. But now, those gazes were filled with astonishment, and it felt incredibly satisfying. This great pagoda tower has truly reached a remarkable level. Ling Shi gazed at the young figure on the battle stage, smiling gently. After all, she had also practiced the great pagoda art, so she was aware of the power of this pagoda tower. It was said to be an extremely powerful divine technique from Aunt Jing's clan. When practiced to its peak, even supreme powerhouses could be easily refined if drawn into the tower. It was truly terrifying. However, Mu Qian had only recently mastered the complete Great Pagoda art. At the place where the students of 10,000 Phoenix's Spiritual Academy gathered, countless flowers bloomed, and various beautiful faces dazzled, pleasing the eye. At this moment, these girls were also observing Mu Qian's battle stage, as his confrontation with Lu Qingyun had certainly captured much attention. This Mu Qian is amazing, even Lu Qingyun couldn't defeat him. I heard Lu Qingyun is a genius from the Gale Spirit clan. People from that clan are no ordinary folks, but he still couldn't win against Mu Qian. Not enough, hee. Mu Qian is pretty handsome. Hee, you little flirt, go ahead and try to hook him up. Our 10,000 Phoenix's Spiritual Academy wouldn't mind adding such an outstanding male student. The girls' words were particularly bold, their laughter and sweet scent filling the air, causing students from other spiritual academies nearby to gaze at them with envy. Qianer, is your childhood friend really from the Northern Spirit Realm? He's so impressive. Lu Qingyun is a genius from the Gale Spirit clan. A beautiful girl beside Tang Qianer praised. He was already outstanding when he was in the Northern Spirit Realm. Tang Qin'er smiled and said. Her beautiful eyes were also focused on the slender figure of the young man, and there was a complicated expression in her gaze. Unconsciously, he had become so dazzling, and it seemed the distance between them was growing further and further. This thought made Tang Qin'er's eyes dim slightly, but she quickly tightened her small fist. The future was still long, and no one knew what would happen. It was just like when Mu Chun, the little kid who used to follow her around with a runny nose, perhaps never imagining that he would one day become so brilliant. On the golden battle stage, Mu Chun looked at the now empty pagoda tower. He waved his hand, and the great pagoda tower turned into a beam of black light, flying into his body. Then, he turned his gaze toward the pale Lu Qingyun and said lightly, "Do we need to continue?" At this moment, Lu Qingyun's spiritual energy was already very weak, clearly heavily injured. There was no chance for him to win if the fight continued. Lu Qingyun wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and gave Mu Chun a deep look. "I give my word. You won this match." He had already used his strongest methods, but even so, Mu Chun had broken through them. Continuing to struggle would only lead to further humiliation, so it was better to concede and show some grace. "Thank you for your mercy." Mu Chun cupped his fists and smiled. There was no deep enmity between him and Lu Qingyun, so there was no need to push him to his limits. Lu Qingyun stood up, glanced at Mu Chun, and said indifferently, "You won, but don't get too proud. Your greatest opponent is Ji Xian. He's not so easy to deal with. I know he's not simple, but I think I'm not exactly an easy opponent either." Mu Chun's voice was calm but filled with an unshakable confidence that drew attention. Lu Qingyun fell silent. Indeed, Ji Xian was formidable, but this young man before him was no simple character either. Once these two met head-on, it would likely be earth-shattering. In the sky, the heads of the 5 great academies watched the scene below, their expressions differing. The Grand Song Academy headmaster had a smile on his face. Mu Chun's performance had exceeded his expectations. He hadn't imagined that even Lu Qingyun would fall to him. With this, their Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy would certainly make it into the top 4. This result was already quite impressive. Grand Song Academy headmaster, this year, Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy has indeed produced a talented new student. Congratulations, sighed Tian Song, the headmaster of Azure Sky Spirit Academy, but still smiled with grace. "You're too kind, Headmaster Tian Song. Mu Chun was just lucky. Your academy's Lu Qingyun is truly exceptional." Grand Song Academy headmaster smiled and replied. At this point, 3 teams have already made it to the top 8. Tian Sheng, the headmaster of Sacred Spirit Academy, said with a slight smile. On the 4 battle stages, Mu Chun defeated Lu Qingyun. Luo Li easily won against her opponent Xian Zongxing. Li Xiantong also emerged victorious, and Su Xian only managed a draw. But that no longer mattered, as their team had gained an overwhelming advantage. Apart from their 2 teams, the 3rd team, led by Wen Qingxian, also won as expected. Compared to the battle between Mu Chun, Ji Xian, and the others, Wen Qingxuan's victory was relatively easy. After all, Fang Yun's strength was the weakest among the 4 team leaders. If not for the power of the Dragon Tiger Cauldron in his hand, it would have been impossible for him to hold on for so long against Wen Qingxian. As for the other 4 members of Wen Qingxuan's team, they each had their own victories and defeats, but in terms of points, they still outscored the 9 Cauldrons Spiritual Academy. Therefore, the match ended with their victory. Thus, 3 teams have now advanced to the top 4 in the top 8 clash. Mu Chun stood on the battle stage, and the others, including Luo Li, Xian Zongxing, Li Xiantong, and Su Xian, quickly gathered around. "Good job," Mu Chun smiled at them. "How can we compare to you?" Xian Zongxing and Li Xiantong said helplessly. Though their battle had been intense, it clearly couldn't compare to the one between Mu Chun and Lu Qingyun. "I didn't win," Su Xian said a little embarrassedly, as she was the only one in the team who had drawn. "That's enough. As long as we make it to the top 4, it's fine," Mu Chun replied nonchalantly. The Azure Sky Spirit Academy's team wasn't easy to deal with, and Su Xian was their weakest member. Being able to draw was already quite an achievement. Luo Li finished her battle the fastest. Xian Zongxing laughed. Among the 8 teams, Luoli was the first to end her battle, and her efficiency had drawn a lot of praise. Mu Chen smiled and nodded. Luoli's strength was top tier even among the 8 team leaders. Facing a single team member, it was no surprise that she didn't need much effort. Now there's only one team left without a result, Luoli said softly. Her clear eyes glanced toward a distant battle stage, and a trace of coldness flowed through her gaze. That battle stage was where Xue Tianhe and Wu Ling were fighting. At present, of the 4 battle stages, 3 had already concluded, with spiritual energy dissipating. Only the one on the far right still had intense spiritual energy fluctuations, causing the space to slightly twist. That was the stage where Xue Tianhe and Wu Ling were battling. The 2 teams each had their victories and defeats. If we calculated the points, each team had 2 points, meaning their members had won 2 matches and lost 2. Therefore, their scores were tied, and the outcome of their battle would decide which team advanced to the top 4 for the final showdown. Xue Tianhe really is impressive. To be able to fight Wu Ling to this extent, Shen Songxing and the others said in astonishment. Wu Ling was the most renowned genius of the Martial Spiritual Academy, and he had hidden his true strength in the elimination round. Yet, even so, he couldn't easily defeat Xue Tianhe. Xue Tianhe is the prince of the Blood God clan. His foundation is stronger than Wu Ling's, Luoli said softly. She was well aware of the Blood God clan, and although Wu Ling was the grandson of the Martial Spiritual Academy's dean, the Academy's foundation was likely not as deep as that of the Blood God clan. I really don't know who will win between them, Mu Chen nodded. From a personal standpoint, he hoped Wu Ling would win, as he had no goodwill toward Xue Tianhe, especially since Xue Tianhe seemed to harbor ill intentions toward Luoli. Mu Chen would love to personally deal with him. This battle is going to be extremely intense. Everyone nodded, their eyes fixed on the massive battle stage. At this moment, almost all the eyes in the vast space were focused there, especially the students from the Martial Spiritual Academy, each of them with a tense expression. Now that the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, Sacred Spirit Academy, and 10,000 Phoenixes Spiritual Academy had all made it to the top 4, if the Martial Spiritual Academy lost here, it would be a significant blow to their morale. Amidst the watchful crowd, on the gigantic battle stage, 2 overwhelming forces of spiritual energy clashed violently. The blood red and deep yellow colors divided the stage into 2 distinct areas. Xue Tianhe and Wu Ling's figures were nearly engulfed by the immense spiritual energy, with each powerful shockwave creating thunderous sounds. From the intensity of their spiritual energy collisions, it was clear that their battle had reached a critical point. Amid the violent collision of the 2 streams of spiritual energy, a sudden roar filled with rage erupted from the battle stage. The roar did not sound human, but rather resembled the howl of a monkey, filled with brutality. The sound waves spread out, causing the blood-red spiritual energy to retreat step by step. This scene immediately caused an uproar. Mu Chen and Luoli's gazes froze in unison. They raised their eyes and saw a massive figure emerge from the vast yellow spiritual energy. The figure, about 100 meters tall, seemed to be a deep yellow-colored ape. It wielded a black giant club, its face grim, with blood-red eyes filled with rage and a thirst for battle. As the giant ape appeared, the spiritual energy in the surrounding world seemed to boil. That is, Mu Chen's face changed slightly, and he exclaimed in surprise, "The War God Ape, ranked 15th on the Spirit Beast ranking, Earth list?" Luoli beside him also showed an expression of surprise. Clearly, she had not expected Wu Ling to have refined the spirit essence of the War God Ape. It seemed that Wu Ling Academy had a hand in this. Otherwise, with Wu Ling's own power, it would have been impossible to refine the spirit essence of such a powerful spirit beast. This is terrifying. Wu Ling actually hides such a trump card. Shen Songxing and the others were also astonished, then filled with envy. Such a powerful spirit beast essence was not something ordinary people could enjoy. It required not only great fortune, but also the help of a powerful being. Otherwise, one would be devoured by the spirit beast's essence. Although they had refined spirit essences when they reached the divine soul stage, the spirit beasts they refined were not very strong. As their powers grew, the strength of the spirit essences gradually faded, until eventually, They could no longer be used unless they had refined the essence of powerful spirit beasts, ranked high on the spirit beast list during their divine soul stage. Xue Tianhe can't hold on much longer. Li Xintong stared at the battle stage. Once Wu Ling activated this hidden trump card, the stalemate was instantly broken. The towering blood-red spiritual energy was rapidly pushed back, and it was clear that with this situation, Wu Ling was likely to win. It's not that simple. Luo Li gently shook her head, her beautiful eyes fixed on the figure hidden within the blood-red spiritual energy. A cold gleam flashed in her gaze. Mu Chen also stared intently at the battle stage. He was just as curious to see what secret Xue Tianhe had up his sleeve. Could he still defeat Wu Ling, who was now so powerful? Boom! Under the gaze of countless eyes, the giant ape transformed by Wu Ling swung its giant club, sweeping out. A large portion of the blood-red spiritual energy was torn apart. Then, the club stormed forward, aiming directly at the figure hidden within the blood-red energy. Screech! Wu Ling showed no mercy. As the club passed, even the space left faint marks, and the dense blood-red spiritual energy exploded in all directions. The vast, ocean-like blood-red energy was now suppressed to only a few dozen meters. These energies were on the verge of shattering under the force of the club. However, just as the giant club was about to shatter the blood-red spiritual energy, an unexpected change occurred. Boom! A massive fist, covered in blood-red scales, suddenly exploded out from the blood-red energy. With a single punch, it collided fiercely with the giant club. The two terrifying forces spread out, and the ground beneath them cracked open with deep fissures. Amid the storm of force, everyone watched in horror as the giant ape transformed by Wu Ling was forced back, its giant feet leaving deep impressions in the ground. What? Countless people gasped in disbelief, their eyes filled with fear as they looked at the blood-red spiritual energy. What had Xue Tianhe done to be able to repel Wu Ling, who had transformed into the war god ape? Shen Songxing and the others also changed their expressions. Mu Chen's gaze locked onto the blood-red spiritual energy. When the giant fist covered in blood-red scales appeared, he could feel the black egg formed by the 9 nether sparrow within the Sumeru bracelet stir slightly. This Xue Tianhe, could it be that he also refined the spirit essence of a powerful spirit beast? Mu Chen's eyes flickered, his expression growing serious. These people were indeed hiding their true strength. As the blood-red spiritual energy gradually dissipated, everyone saw a massive figure slowly emerge, becoming clearer and clearer. Hiss! It was a humanoid giant beast covered in blood-red scales, its body enveloped in thick blood armor. The back was lined with sharp blood-red bone spurs, giving it a menacing and vicious appearance. A wave of malevolent aura spread throughout the air. What is that? That is the Blood Demon Beast, ranked 13th on the Spirit Beast Rankings Earth list, Luo Li said softly, her beautiful eyes filled with coldness. Ranked 13th? Mu Chen's heart trembled slightly. It was said that the Blood Demon Beast was one of the most vicious types of spirit beasts. Furthermore, its 13th place ranking, just 2 spots below the 9 nether sparrow, showed how powerful it was. However, this beast was extremely brutal, and refining it would have a negative effect on one's mind, causing the person to adopt its ferocity. Within the Blood God clan, there are seas of blood, formed from the essence of countless human lives. They use this to form a pact with the Blood Demon Beast clan, strengthening their power. Luo Li's clear eyes were now filled with deep hatred. Over the years, the Blood God clan has relentlessly attacked our Luo God clan's territory, capturing our people and turning them into the Blood Sea, cultivating blood demon beasts. Mu Chen was slightly stunned. Though he knew that battles between clans were bound to be brutal, he hadn't expected the Blood God clan to be so merciless. No wonder Luo Li despised them so much. Mu Chen gazed at the girl, whose lips were gently biting her red lips, and couldn't help but feel a surge of sympathy. The responsibility on her shoulders was far beyond what he had imagined. The billions of people needed her protection, and the fact that she had taken the time to leave the Luo God clan temporarily and come to the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy showed just how much she was sacrificing. This thought made Mu Chen feel a bit overwhelmed. She always gave so much for him without saying a word. Mu Chun took a deep breath, extending his hand to gently grasp Luo Li's. He didn't say much, knowing that at present, he was in no position to oppose the immense power of the Blood God clan. But one day, for her, he would shake the Blood God clan to its very core. Luo Li also sensed Mu Chen's feelings, and her cold little hand grasped his in return. A slight sense of peace filled her heart as she softly spoke, "Wu Ling is going to lose." Mu Chen looked up and indeed saw that the battle on the battle stage had turned again. With the Blood Tianhe urging the Blood Demon Beast's power, his strength had surpassed Wu Ling's. The giant ape was being pushed back by the Blood Demon Beast's blood fists. This scene made everyone realize that the final clash had already been decided. Boom! With another ferocious collision, the Blood Demon Beast was knocked back. The blood-red scales on its massive arms shattered in circles, while the giant ape was sent flying, its huge body shrinking mid-air before becoming a shadow that crashed to the ground, leaving a deep gouge on the battle stage. Wu Ling coughed up blood, his clothes torn. He stared at the Blood Demon Beast, his eyes filled with unwillingness and gloom. He hadn't expected the Blood Tianhe to be this strong. In the sky, the Blood Demon Beast rapidly shrank, finally transforming into the figure of Blood Tianhe. His mocking gaze swept over Wu Ling before he crossed his arms, turning his eyes to Mu Chen and Luo Li. A cruel smile slowly spread across his lips. Seeing his provocative grin, Mu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. He then slowly extended his thumb, only to turn it down. The sunlight shone down, casting the silhouette of the young man, his expression calm. Yet his posture exuded a kind of rebellious arrogance and dominance that was hard to ignore. On the final battle stage, the smoke from the battle gradually settled, and the fierce fight came to an end. Of course, the final outcome was somewhat unexpected. No one had anticipated that Wu Ling would lose. After all, if you ranked purely by reputation among the 8 captains present, Wu Ling would easily be in the top 3. Yet, even so, he was defeated. This harsh reality made countless people quietly sigh. This year's Spiritual Academy Grand Competition was simply too intense. The Martial Spiritual Academy's students exchanged looks, their spirits visibly dampened. Wu Ling's defeat had certainly taken a toll on their morale. However, they knew that it wasn't entirely Wu Ling's fault. He had done his best. After all, he had even activated the War God Ape's power. But no one had expected that Blood Tianhe was hiding such a powerful trump card. It seems that the defeat of the Wu Ling has left the martial Heavenly King somewhat displeased. The 4 deans standing nearby understood his mood and said nothing. However, they would never consider stripping Xue Tianhe of his qualifications to compete. Doing so would undoubtedly provoke the Blood God clan, which would not let it go easily. Ahem, since the top 8 clash has concluded, let's announce the next round of battles, Dean Tianshang of Sacred Spirit Academy said, clearing his throat lightly with a faint smile. The strength Xue Tianhe displayed was indeed not weak, but Dean Tianshang had great confidence in Jixian. He believed that Sacred Spirit Academy would once again secure the top spot in this year's Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. The 4 deans nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Dean Tianshang waved his sleeve, and his powerful voice, like thunder, echoed across the sky. The top 8 clashes ended, and the 4 strongest teams have emerged. They will be the true protagonists of this year's Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. Sacred Spirit Academy. As Dean Tianshang's voice rang out, a brilliant pillar of light suddenly descended from the sky, enveloping Ji Xian and his team, drawing the attention of everyone present. North Heaven Spiritual Academy. Another pillar of light descended. Mu Chun and his 5 teammates stood still as the light illuminated their bodies, creating arcs of light around them. A thunderous cheer followed, with the loudest shouts coming from the North Heaven Spiritual Academy students. 10,000 Phoenixes Spiritual Academy. A third pillar of light descended. When Qing Xian gripped her Golden War spear with her left hand, her ink-black hair cascaded down, and she rested her right hand on her slim waist, her golden battle armor perfectly hugging her graceful, curvy figure. Her stunning face held the pride of a phoenix, her eyes radiating an astonishing beauty. Behind her, the 4 girls, Pinner, Luer, and the others, were equally captivating. Blood God Academy. The final pillar of light fell upon Xue Tianhe and his team. Xue Tianhe stood at the forefront, arms crossed, his expression calm, though his cold gaze repeatedly swept over Mu Chen. The four enormous pillars of light became the focal point of the entire world. These four teams were undoubtedly the strongest, a fact that no one could deny. After enduring half a year of elimination rounds, these teams had triumphed over equally powerful opponents in the final battles, earning their place here, amidst the deafening cheers and admiring gazes. The top four teams have finally appeared. The upcoming battles will be even more intense. I wonder who will emerge victorious. I think Ji Xian from Sacred Spirit Academy has the best chance. His strength is truly unfathomable. It's hard to say. When Qing Xian from 10,000 Phoenix's Spiritual Academy isn't someone to underestimate. Although she seemed average in the earlier battles, even Ji Xian wouldn't dare to look down on her. That's true. I've heard the dean mention her occasionally. When Qing Xian is far from ordinary. What about Mu Chen from North Heaven Spiritual Academy? He even defeated Lu Qingyun, whose strength likely rivals that of Wu Ling. And then there's Xue Tianhe. Anyone who can take down Wu Ling is someone to be feared. This year's Spiritual Academy Grand Competition is bound to be the most fierce in a century. Whispers erupted in the air, as the power of the four teams was so overwhelming that it was hard to imagine who would ultimately claim the championship without the final showdown. Amidst the thunderous cheers that filled the sky, the four teams stood on their respective battle stages, receiving the countless burning gazes. Their expressions remained calm, their minds unshaken. The teams that had made it this far were undoubtedly the most elite among all the spiritual academies. Their composure was equally formidable. I wonder how the next battles will unfold, Shen Songxing remarked solemnly, looking at the other three teams. Each of these teams was incredibly strong, and no matter who they faced next, it would certainly be a hard-fought battle. No matter who the next opponent is, we'll do our best, Mu Chen replied with a slight smile. With you and Luo Li leading the way, we'll have it easy, Li Xinong added, also smiling. Moreover, the two of them were in different positions, one in the open and the other in the shadows. Perhaps many people were unaware that this girl, who had always kept a low profile, was actually an extraordinary figure who was no less than the four team captains. When Mu Chen heard this, he couldn't help but give them a glance. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly sensed something, his gaze sharpening as he looked up. At the same time, Luo Li, Ji Xian, Wen Qing Xian, Xue Tianhe, and the others seemed to sense it as well and looked up. Their gazes all turned towards the sky. There, the space above began to twist violently. A massive object, several thousand feet in size, slowly broke through the air. Hiss. When everyone saw the enormous object breaking through the space, they couldn't help but gasp in awe. It was a giant copper mirror, about several thousand feet in size, its surface covered in mysterious, ancient inscriptions. The mirror was dark and dusty, as though veiled in dust, making it impossible to see through. The moment the copper mirror appeared, the surrounding space seemed to become chaotic, as if it couldn't contain such a powerful entity. The mirror quietly floated in the sky. Despite its dusty surface, it gave off an otherworldly aura, as if it could reflect the entire world. That is, Mu Chen's eyes widened in shock. He felt the slight tremor of the great Sumeru demon pillar within him, and most shockingly, even the eternal diagram within him seemed to stir. It's the artifact of the 5 great academies, the Mirror of Judgment. Luo Li's Luo God sword in her hand suddenly emitted sword light uncontrollably, and a sword chant rang out, as though it was about to fly out to challenge the mysterious copper mirror. Mirror of Judgment? Hearing this name, everyone's hearts trembled. Mu Chen's gaze became complex. Come to think of it, the reason he entered the Spirit Road and met Luo Li was because of this mysterious Mirror of Judgment. Those who entered the Spirit Road were all chosen by this very mirror. What grade of artifact is this? Mu Chen asked Luo Li softly. Perhaps it surpasses the top grade, Luo Li pondered. Mu Chen took a deep breath. An artifact that surpasses top grade? Such a powerful artifact might be beyond the reach of even the ancient and prestigious clans, Yet it had appeared in the 5 great academies. It is said that this mirror of judgment is an ancient relic. Its light can pierce through dimensional barriers and shine upon lower planes. No one's actions can hide under its light, Luoli said. Legend has it that in ancient times, wherever the light of the judgment realm shone, even supreme powerhouses would be reduced to ashes. Is it really that terrifying? Mu Qin's heart skipped a beat. If that was the case, could he use this mirror of judgment to locate where his mother was? However, the thought only flashed through his mind before he dismissed it. His mother had gone to great lengths to hide herself. If he were to search without permission, the mysterious clan might detect him. Mu Qin didn't believe he was strong enough to confront them yet. That's just a legend. But after the great catastrophe of ancient times, it seems that the Judgment Realm has been damaged. It shouldn't have such terrifying powers anymore, Luoli smiled and said. Why did the 5 deans suddenly summon the Judgment Realm? Su Xian asked, a little confused. The Judgment Realm was not exclusive to any one spiritual academy, but was controlled jointly by the 5 great academies. Only when all 5 deans acted together could it be summoned. Could it be because of the upcoming top 4 clash? Shin Songxing said in surprise. That seems likely. Mu Qin and Luoli exchanged a glance. This was the only explanation that made sense. Otherwise, they wouldn't easily summon such a powerful artifact. While everyone speculated in confusion, in the sky, Dean Tianshang of the Sacred Spirit Academy gave a faint smile. He then pointed towards the Judgment Realm, and his deep voice echoed through the heavens, reaching everyone's ears. You're right. This time, the top 4 clash will be initiated by the Judgment Realm. Boom. As soon as these words were spoken, the heavens and earth resounded with an uproar. Even Mu Qin and the others looked at each other in shock.